For today's cup of coffee, we have something from Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah, we have the horror with us.
Well, like I said, she's very distracting. She's distracting to you. She's distracting to me. But it's okay. And as far as my mother, who had taken a tumble there yesterday, and there is a fracture that is there on the humerus near the head of the bone that goes into the socket. And you know, she gets to see the orthopedist on Tuesday, so it wasn't that severe. Arm in a sling.
I mean, it's so severe that the fact that she fell and broke something.
She's in pain. She's in some pain, but not as much as she was last night.
Yeah.
So
we feel you, baby. We got that too.
Yeah, we're on the heel. I think a lot of this it's combination of bronchitis that comes from allergies.
Mine's better.
Yeah. Horseradish. Horseradish has been very beneficial for me.
Yes.
Yeah, on a biscuit.
Yes.
So
I think she's got heartworms. That's what I think.
My mother.
The bitch. The voodoo.
Anyhow, she's making...
That was me after I got off the bike.
She's making horrible noises, and I wish she wasn't in here. But she's in here.
Update on the bike, too. I managed to get up halfway up the hill.
Yeah, he's doing really
falling.
well. He's doing really well. Learning very quickly with the bicycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because I've been wanting to do that for a while. I knew it wasn't going to take long for me to get my balance on it.
Right, because the wheel was there.
The what?
You wanted to do that, so you had the wheel to get out and, you know.
Well, that and my balance, because, like, it's always been... My balance has been pretty damn good since taking ballet.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of doing until you get it. Yeah. Stuff's only hard when you know, in the beginning.
Uphill is hard. Even if it's a slight slant. I had to constantly pedal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is a real challenge in this area to ride a bicycle because the mountainous terrain, and that's,
Yep.
And as far as bike paths, you have to drive miles to get to a bike path.
Yeah.
But, you know, so he'll get it. He will get it. Anyhow, for today's cup...
You sniffing the mic?
We have something that is... I thought this was of great interest. And this is by Kelsey, Roslin, and was written February the 16th, 2022. And this is How Tuberculosis Influenced Victorian Fashion.
Now
and it's like
to us.
Right, because there's always been weird fashion trends, and you're like, how does that happen?
Right.
How is it that something that appears to be, so cool one day, the next day is like, that was damn stupid.
Heroin chic.
We're going to get to that. That goes into some of this.
And what was the most recent thing? Oh, it was a fashion thing. Homeless.
What?
Yeah.
That's like Zoolander and Dairy League.
Not only that, that is insulting.
Yeah.
That is insulting to make homelessness a fashion statement.
Why don't they go out there and live it and see how, how vogue it is. That's insane. Anyhow, Miss Roslin writes, before influencers and advertisements, fashion relied on other factors to steer trends, including deadly diseases. One of the oldest diseases in human history, tuberculosis, has had lasting impacts on the world, but it also had an unexpected influence on Victorian fashion when people began to romanticize it.
Which is disgusting.
I think so. It says that the Victorian era, which was 1837 to 1901, was a time of immense industrial growth. The United Kingdom was under the reign of Queen Victoria and made strides in the production of coal, iron, steel, and textiles, as well as scientific and artistic breakthroughs and influences. Under her reign, the engineering marvel that was the London and Birmingham Railway became a reality. These innovations and industrial changes even led to the modern steampunk subculture that draws heavily on the advancements of the 19th century. Now, personally, I'm a fan of the steampunk.
I like steampunk too,
Yeah,
but it's not one of my favorites, but I do like steampunk.
Well, it's got some good stuff to it. It says, during this time, the great exhibition of the works of industry of all nations opened, and it was a world fair that showcased industrial contributions and influential cultural items from around the world. Queen Victoria gave the opening ceremony, and while it was open, 6 million people came to view these exhibits. And in that time, that was a lot of people's.
Yeah.
Because they had to really put forth some effort to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But the Victorian era wasn't a time of success and celebration for all, especially for the poorer classes in London. The gap between the classes only grew during this time, and poverty rates increased. Sort of sounds like today.
Yeah. How bizarre.
Yeah, really. It's like history repeats itself.
Oddly familiar.
Diseases spread rampantly, and the poor were forced to live in cramped quarters and work in dangerous places like mines and factories. As if daily life wasn't scary enough, it was during the Victorian era that Jack the Ripper was active. Many people lived in fear of being killed or dying of a disease like cholera or tuberculosis. Sort of like today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it says tuberculosis is one of the oldest known diseases, and even mummies have shown evidence of the illness in their spines. It's still around today, and it is estimated that more than 1 billion people have died from it throughout history. And that's a lot, but throughout history, I mean...
Yeah.
That's a lot, but throughout all of history, when tuberculosis...
I mean, that's a lot, but it's spread out.
Right. So when you think about that, is it really
Wasn't tuberculosis making a comeback or something?
Yeah, there's quite a few diseases that they thought were wiped out that, typhus, I think that was out in California. Bubonic plague has been reported out in California.
Bubonic plague.
The Black Death. Yeah, that one got headlines for quite a while. It says when tuberculosis began to spread with fervor during the Victorian era, the way it was contracted still wasn't fully understood. It became an epidemic and heavily impacted life in Europe and North America. During this time, it killed nearly 1 in 5 people, and around 40% of deaths in heavily populated cities were caused by the disease.
Wow.
It was, people are not designed to live in that kind of cramped quarters.
No.
I mean, that spreads disease of all kinds, like mind, body, and spirit.
This cat's spreading disease.
It was often called consumption because of how much weight those inflicted with tuberculosis lost. Another nickname was the White Plague because of how pale people would become. I had never heard of it referred to as that, had you?
No.
And it says, and yet its final nickname was the Romantic Disease. I had never heard of it called that either.
No.
It says people became enamored with the physical effects of contracting the illness.
Why didn't they though? Why didn't they get the disease then if they romanticized it so much?
Really. And the effects included pale skin, thin waist, and flushed lips and cheeks from long-term fevers were seen as quite desirable. And Charlotte Bronte wrote in a letter as she watched her sister fall ever sicker with the disease, quote, "Consumption, I am aware, is a flattering malady," end quote. Now that's
not, when you have it, it's not quite flattering.
No, not when you're dying. I mean, seriously. It says those that became ill with tuberculosis tended to die slowly. Often, especially for the wealthy, people were instructed by their doctors to head to a relaxing area with fresh air, spend time in the sun, and relax. The sick were often introspective and thoughtful and seemed to have time to move at a slower pace. Others even viewed them with jealousy.
The fuck?
That's sick.
That is sick.
As the disease took hold further, scientists began to understand germ theory and transmission. More women were getting sick than men, and they began to realize that it wasn't sanitary to have long trains flowing behind them and dragging through the spit-covered streets.
No shit.
Now, that was more than spit in those streets.
What the fuck?
People just, I don't know. So gowns shortened and lost their trains. This made it so that shoes were more visible, making their appearance more important. Though thin waist became popular and women that got ill got slimmer, well, yeah, people realized that emulating the look with restrictive, lung-squishing boned corsets.
No,
look,
that is factually incorrect.
Might not be the most comfortable option when tuberculosis caused rough bouts of coughing on its own. That led to the more flexible so-called health corsets and dresses that were cinched at the waist to allow for a slimming effect without the tight pressure.
Okay, that's better.
This is Ripley's. Now, they pretty well researched this shit. They really do. And it says voluminous skirts that gave the appearance of a slimmer waist became popular too. The flowing, carefree ways of the Georgian era were replaced by practicality and attempts to imitate the look the disease gave. The light fabrics gave way to thicker and sturdier materials. Consumption made the women who were ill appear much weaker and more subdued, and fashion leaned back toward the puritanical to emulate this. Those who were not sick powdered their face to appear pale, rouged their cheeks, and wore dresses that pulled their posture into a frail and unsteady state. See that? I'm just like, that's crazy. Because the theory that saliva could carry the consumption was spreading, men's fashion changed as well. Many men shaved their long beards and sideburns to prevent spit from lingering there. Their fashion turned somber as well, taking on a more serious appearance. At what point did soap come into being?
Exactly. All they had to do was wash themselves.
Right. So I don't... And that's part of what spreads disease today.
I know damn well lye soap existed back then.
Oh, you know it did. I mean, there had to be some form of soap so that they could wash their clothing, even though it was very rare that some of them washed their clothing. There was this whole thing about, there was a myth for a period of time that bathing made people sick.
No, it made people healthy.
Right.
Because guess what? It's washing all that shit off of you.
Right. But I don't know. How do people get some of the ideas that they do on any of these things?
Idiocy.
Well, they didn't have, as far as the ability to research these things like they do today. There was a lot of speculation. There was a lot of myth, a lot of misinformation back then.
Mm-hmm.
So, research for yourself. But the soap, use the soap.
Objection, hearsay.
Oh, yeah, really?
Calls for speculation.
I will tell you this, that there is actually, that gel hand sanitizer. That stuff has an ingredient in it that is not good for you. It really does.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh, what is that?
I can't remember what it was, and,
What does it do to you?
It can actually reduce your immune system. Validate this. This was something I heard. I have not researched this. I do not have a source or a reference for you on that. But soap, just regular soap, because what it does, it breaks down the membrane around the germs, and they just sort of, it's like putting salt on a slug. Yeah.
Okay.
So lots of the hand washing.
Wash your damn hands.
Absolutely.
Didn't y'all learn anything from this panoramic?
And it says some elements, like the idea that looking sickly thin was high fashion, have reared up again throughout history. In the 90s, fashion once again romanticized a devastating condition with the rise of heroin chic. and the desire to look ill and frail. And it says, but looking unwell isn't the only trend that saw a resurgence. There will always be subcultures where Gothic fashion, Victorian fashion, and steampunk are in because of the influence of the Victorian era. Let's just hope some of the time period's deadlier fashion trends don't catch on.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have always wondered about that, because there have been periods of time where it was not fashionable for females to look like they were at death's door. I don't understand why anybody would find that desirable. And that was researching a little bit about the anorexia thing. Now, in the 60s, you had Twiggy and that whole super thin waif-like, that orphan look. And I'm like, who in the hell?
I mean, I want to be slim, but I don't want to be like deathly or sickly thin.
Well, and then you had
I want to be like that good fit slim.
You had the whole anorexia thing there in the fashion industry. And if anybody ever took the time to see what these models looked like, as far as what their actual body, not the clothing and all this stuff, they looked like they had come out of a concentration camp.
Yes, because guess what? A lot of the fashion industry, women encourage other women.
They do
to starve themselves,
and
which is
what
why.
In the hell? I mean, that just is. And let me tell you something.
Thank God for the body positivity movement.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that's shitting on that. But now let me tell you something. When you've got somebody that has starved themselves to that point that they have no energy, not only are they damaging their organs. I went to college with a girl that had anorexia. And that she would put layer upon layer of clothing. And she was brilliant. She had a 4.0 average.
That's good.
And was studying psychology.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, anybody that goes into psychology is their number one client.
Absolutely. They're trying to diagnose themselves. And that her husband had told her that if she had another bout of it, that he would leave her. Because he loved her, to the point he could not stand to see her kill herself.
Mm-hmm. I wonder whatever happened to her after
I don't know. I hope that, that it was resolved to where she felt the need to not have to hurt herself.
Yeah.
And this is as far as society and stuff like that. And some of these influencers that go on with this shit, I don't know if they are unaware of what happened to Karen Carpenter, back in the 70s, that these poison pens in the media and stuff like that they had said that she was fat, and she wasn't. And even if she had been, so what? That did not negate the fact that she had an amazing voice. Mm-hmm. And so she died from the anorexia.
There's this one YouTuber by the name of Eugenia Cooney, and she has anorexia, and it's clear because she's like skeletal thin, and people are literally getting upset and outraged because she's online and she's allowed to be online, quote unquote, promoting anorexia. She's just sitting there.
Right.
She's just sitting there most of the time, and yeah, she does show her clothing or whatever, but it's not like she's not promoting anorexia at all. She refuses to most of the time to talk about it.
Right.
If someone asks if she has anorexia, she'll always deny it, but it's clear.
Right. Well, the denial of it is not healthy.
The way that they are going about it, they're doing more harm to her mental health than good. I understand that their hearts are in the right place, but they are doing more harm than good to her.
Well, and that's something that she needs professional help. She really does. Mm-hmm. And that's, an influencer is an influencer. Most of these people are not trained professionals. Other than some of them are trained assholes.
How dare.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that was like we were discussing this the other day, because Kid and I, we actually do talk this stuff. And noticing that people who have gone through childhood trauma have a tendency to be overweight.
Yeah.
And there's
eating their feelings and stuff
some
like
of it, and some of it is a matter of self-medicating with food. It's an addiction. It can be an addiction, just like if it had been heroin or any of these other things. And yet, it is more socially acceptable to be a heroin addict as far as how they look than to have the same type of trauma and look at somebody who is obese. That's a sickness within our society.
Yeah, but that's why the body positivity movement came along, and it wasn't for the skinny people.
Right.
It was for the plus size people.
Well, it's a matter of God likes variety.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to include plus size men too.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when you have some of these people that are horribly morbidly obese, there is a mental health issue there somewhere. Guarantee. Because nobody chooses to be large like that. Nobody chooses, in a lot of ways, to go outside of societal standards.
Lois Lane, she's a big girl. Like, she's a big girl. But she's beautiful.
Right.
And she's smart.
Right.
So,
I don't see why people can't see people for people.
I will forever be grateful to her.
Yeah.
Because, like, she, did the video on my stuff, on my ARG. But she's got this personality that's just, you just sort of want to talk to her.
Right.
You would like to hang out with her a couple times, It doesn't matter what a person's weight is, as long as their heart is good.
Right.
And they got a good,
Well, we have the prime example of this stuff that you've been watching, which I have tried to avoid like the plague, that shows how superficial the beautiful people can be. And that is this about Johnny Depp and
Amber Turd.
And so
hashtag Amber Turd. We are putting that hashtag in.
Okay, whatever. And it's one of those things that people have a tendency to glorify somebody that's on some form of a screen or, photograph or whatever. And why? Just because somebody's pretty on the outside does not mean that they're pretty on the inside. And through this whole thing, people understand how broken these individuals are.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of crazy. That is just as crazy as envying someone who has a disease, a deadly disease.
Yeah, that is sick.
And addiction is a deadly disease too.
Yeah. And anybody idolizing that is sick and twisted.
Well,
or has a sick and twisted mind as far as that they don't actually understand that these people are hurting themselves.
Right. Well, and that's
these
where
people are genuinely sick and they need help.
Sure. Don't emulate other people. Be yourself.
Transfer the anxious.
You're right. That is right. Yeah. So, anyhow, I thought that was just timely in a lot of ways, but it's always been, there's just, and my half of the species, I don't know what the hell is wrong with us. But now I think part of it has to do with the dark side of females. Now you talk about catty and bitchy and conniving, and it's just like, yeah, no, I don't, nope. And why would you want that? And men, why would you want a woman that is like that? What is wrong with y'all?
What now? We do have to talk about like the standards of beauty for men too, because those are so out there. Because it's almost impossible for a lot of us to achieve that sort of beauty.
But that has been a recent thing. It really has. And that
80s, early 2000s.
Well, that's recent.
2000s.
In the scope of history, that is recent. It was more about, I mean, yeah, as far as, it's not that men can't be vain. They often can. But it was more as far as the affluence, their ability to earn a living, and that type of, that was what was more sought after. And I don't know if this is just a Western culture thing or what, but it's weird. And that now with males that they are trying to impose these body styles like anime characters. Are you serious?
That's not now. It's mostly about like these overly muscly people.
Well, you've always had that as far as, but do women truly expect people to look like that? No, they don't.
Oh, the hell you say they do. A lot of them do.
Then those people have never been around people that are truly weightlifters, power lifters, any of these, because there's a difference.
Or even just the models that you see on the runways and whatever, those buff men, because, yeah.
Right. I mean, these people in a gym are sometimes insufferable.
Yeah.
So
stupid.
It's a matter of who somebody is on the inside.
Wanda from Fairly Odd Parents. I like to eat the brains first because models never use them.
That's true. That's true.
She had this chocolate man or whatever, and she bit the head off of it.
Yeah. And he probably didn't even miss it. So, and I'm sure that there are some people that are in that industry that are intelligent, but I'd say that from what we have seen, there's not many like that.
No. Oh, I got chills now.
So, one of the few, David Duchovny.
David Duchovny.
But you know what? He didn't age too well, did he? But it's okay.
He's probably had a rough going.
But I'll tell you.
Like, look at Johnny Depp. He's had a rough going because of Amber Turd.
The whole thing about the character of Fox Mulder was he was fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. It wasn't, I mean, the looks were kind of added, but it was who he was, his quest, everything like that was stunning.
But who is he as a person outside of the character?
He's brilliant. He was a male model for a while. I think he went to, I can't remember if it was Harvard, Yale, one of those things. So yeah, he actually is a very intelligent person.
Dang, he had brains.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was another thing as far as he's one of the few actors that I'm like, yeah. Now, he may be a total asshole. I don't know. I've never heard anybody say.
Have you watched interviews of him? I haven't.
No, I try not to because that's one of those never meet your heroes.
You don't get to meet them. You just watch.
No, it's just because it will totally
ruin the illusion.
It will ruin the illusion. And with that, I would rather keep the illusion.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Do not follow these trends. And some of these trends today are just as stupid as they come.
Trends are for the anxious and the FOMOs.
Mm-hmm. But weren't people taking...
who have the FOMO.
Weren't people taking arsenic or something at one point to achieve that paleness? Didn't we hear that?
I don't know if they were taking arsenic, but they definitely wore makeup containing arsenic.
So, anyhow...
They also had walls of green with arsenic, clothing with green, paint.
Mm-hmm. That was the whole thing about the Mad Hatters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was also
Be
with
yourself.
Uranium. That was also with uranium.
God, that's crazy. Anyhow, if you have experiences...
Mad Hatters!
Mad Hatters. If you've had experiences with paranormal, supernatural, encounters with UFOs, aliens, cryptids... crazy, dangerous fashion bullshit. If you've got local, regional, family myths or legends, send us an email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com, and the links for the article plus the email will be in the description box. Know that you're loved for who you are. Mm-hmm. Not what you look like.
Yes.
Sometimes I think that the people who are blind in our society as far as physical sight are the ones who have the clearest vision.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the way that Living Dead dolls look.
Well, anyhow.
I'll look like that one day when I'm dead.
Well, yeah, that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe and click that notification button for daily notifications of our daily uploads. I know I said weekly the other night. I was tired. I'm sorry. Y'all have a good one. Drink a Monster.
Yeah. Or 2.
Or 5.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Shotgun that shit.
Thank you all for the prayers and the well wishes as far as my mother. That is very much appreciated.
Yes.
So we'll see you on the next cup. Bye.
Bye.